Coronado Naval Base, California, August 2024, 0800 hours. Staff Sergeant Reese Sullivan stood tied to a chain-link fence. The California sun climbed over the Pacific, casting long shadows across the training compound. 397 operators filled the bleachers. Every single one of them was watching her, waiting for her to break. 400 meters away, standing in shadow beside Building 7, Master Chief Garrett "Phantom" Sullivan watched through binoculars. He was watching his daughter. He had not spoken to her in 4 years. 4 years ago, in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and blood, he had looked at his daughter's shrapnel-torn body and said 4 words that destroyed everything between them. "You should have let him die." In 12 seconds, she was about to prove him wrong. Senior Chief Dalton Graves grabbed a fistful of Reese's dark hair and slammed her face against the chain link. The metal bit into her cheek. Blood welled at her temple. "Tie her up," Graves ordered. 4 men moved forward. 2 grabbed her left arm. 2 took her right. They yanked her arms wide, spreading them against the fence like a crucifixion. Industrial zip ties, the kind rated for 200 pounds of struggling operator, cinched tight around her wrists. The ties bit into skin, drew blood immediately. Reese didn't make a sound. Her olive green t-shirt, V-neck and fitted, was already torn at the shoulder from where they dragged her across the sand. Her camouflage cargo pants were covered in dust. Her dark brown hair, normally pulled back in a regulation bun, hung loose around her face. She was 25 years old, 5'6", 130 pounds. The daughter of the most decorated enlisted SEAL in Team 6 history, and every man in this compound believed she had earned nothing, deserved nothing, would shatter like glass under real pressure. Graves stepped back to admire his work. 220 pounds of muscle, 42 years old, 20 years in the teams, a man who had built his entire identity on a foundation that was now being challenged by politics he didn't understand and changes he didn't want. "Look at her," he announced to the crowd. His voice carried across the compound. Sharp, confident, the voice of a man who had never questioned his place in the world. "This is what happens when politicians infect our teams. This is what happens when we pretend women belong in places they were never meant to be." Reese said nothing. Her wrists were bound to the fence, her arms stretched wide, her face pressed against cold metal. But her eyes were open, watching, calculating distances, counting opponents, finding weaknesses. The scar across her ribs, visible through the tear in her shirt, caught the morning light. 4 inches long, ragged. The kind of scar that came from shrapnel, not surgery. The kind that told a story most of these men would never know. Graves leaned close. His breath was hot against her ear. "Where's your Navy SEAL daddy now, princess?" Reese's jaw tightened, just slightly. "Nobody's coming to save you," Graves continued. "You're going to hang on this fence until you cry, until you beg, until every man watching understands that integration is a fantasy dreamed up by people who've never seen real combat." 30 seconds of silence. The operators in the bleachers shifted. Uncomfortable. This had gone beyond training, beyond testing. This was something else, something darker. But nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Reese turned her head, just enough to look Graves in the eye. "You talk too much." The words came out calm, conversational, like she was commenting on the weather. Graves's face twisted. "What did you say?" "I said you talk too much." Reese's voice didn't change. "Men who are confident in their strength don't need to announce it. They demonstrate it. I'm about to demonstrate plenty." "No." Reese's eyes never left his. "You're about to make the worst mistake of your career." Graves laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "Mistake? I've got you tied to a fence with 400 witnesses. The only mistake here is yours thinking your daddy's name means anything without daddy's protection. My father hasn't spoken to me in 4 years. That stopped him. Graves's smile faltered. "Just for a second." "What? 4 years of silence," Reese said. 4 years of wondering what I did wrong. 4 years of carrying weight you can't possibly imagine." Her voice didn't crack, didn't waver. It was the voice of someone who had already survived the worst thing that could happen to them. "So when you threaten me with his absence," she continued, "you're threatening me with something I've already lived through, something I've already survived." Graves recovered quickly. His smile returned, harder now, crueler. "Doesn't matter, you're still tied to a fence, you're still—" Reese moved, not struggling, not fighting the restraints, moving with purpose. Her right hand rotated inward, a technique most people didn't know existed, a technique her father had taught her when she was 12 years old in their backyard in Virginia Beach on a Saturday afternoon that felt like a lifetime ago. The zip tie was designed to resist outward force. Pulling against it only made it tighter. Inward rotation created slack. 1 inch of slack, enough. She ripped her hand free. The plastic cut deep into her wrist. Blood mixed with sweat. Pain shot up her arm like electricity. She ignored it. Graves lunged to stop her. Too late. Reese's knee found his groin with precision that spoke of thousands of hours of practice. Not luck, not adrenaline, pure technique honed to muscle memory. Graves folded. Her elbow found his temple on the way down. He dropped. The 4 men who had tied her rushed forward. Reese's left hand was still bound to the fence. She used it as an anchor, spun her body around the fence post, generated momentum, physics, leverage, everything her father had drilled into her since she was 8 years old. Her foot caught the first man in the jaw. He spun away, blood spraying. The second man grabbed for her free arm. Reese redirected his grip, pulled him into the fence, drove her forehead into his nose. Cartilage crunched. More blood. The third man tackled low. Smart. Going for her legs. She sprawled, redirected his energy, let his momentum carry him past her. Her elbow found the back of his neck as he went by. He went limp. The fourth man hesitated. That hesitation cost him everything. Reese snapped the remaining zip tie. The plastic cut deep into her left wrist. She felt skin tear, felt blood run hot down her palm. She was on the fourth man before he could process what was happening. Throat strike, knee collapse, controlled descent. 4 men down, 12 seconds from start to finish. Graves was struggling to his knees, one hand cupping his groin. His face was a mask of pain and fury and something else, something that looked almost like fear. He gasped. You're dead. Your career is... Reese walked toward him, not fast, not slow, just purposeful. My career ended in Syria, she said. When I saved a SEAL officer's life and my father called me a disgrace for it. She stopped 3 feet away. Everything since then that has been borrowed time. Graves stared at her, blood running from his broken nose, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Syria, he managed. What are you, Northern Syria? 2022, joint operation with SEAL Team 4. Reese's voice went flat, the voice of someone reciting a report they'd written 1,000 times in their head. Lieutenant Commander Elliot Torres walked toward a pressure plate. I saw it. 1 second to decide. Push him clear or let the mission continue. She paused. I chose him. Graves's face changed, recognition dawning. That was you. It wasn't a question. The blast should have killed Torres. Instead, it shattered my ribs and filled my lung with blood. But I stayed conscious, stayed focused, because Torres was still alive and that meant the mission wasn't over. Her voice cracked, just slightly, the first break in her armor. Sergeant Caleb Porter and Specialist Tyler Vaughn were behind me. Secondary fragmentation. They died instantly. The compound was silent now. 400 men listening to a story most of them had never heard. A story that had been classified, buried, forgotten by everyone except the woman who lived it. I carry their names every day, Reese said quietly. Every night, every time someone like you tells me I don't belong. She knelt beside Graves. You want to know the worst part? The thing that broke me more than the shrapnel ever could. Graves didn't answer. My father, Master Chief Garrett Sullivan, the legend you worship. She leaned closer. He came to my hospital room, looked at me with tubes in my chest and blood everywhere. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. And he said you should have let him die. The words fell like stones. He stopped speaking to me after that. 4 years, no calls, no letters, no acknowledgement that I exist. She looked around at the faces staring back at her. Some sympathetic, some shocked, some still hostile. So when you tie me to a fence and ask where my Navy SEAL daddy is, she said, the answer is simple. I don't know. I haven't known for 4 years. Silence. Then a voice from the back of the bleachers, quiet but carrying. Anyone else want to teach her a lesson? Reese turned. The voice belonged to Petty Officer First Class Wade Briscoe. 35 years old, lean and weathered, the kind of operator who had seen too much and said too little. He was looking at the crowd, challenging them. Nobody moved. That's what I thought, Briscoe said. Reese turned back to Graves. Blood dripped from her torn wrists. Her torn shirt hung in tatters. Her dark hair was wild around her face. Get medical attention for your men, Senior Chief, she said. Then stay away from me. She walked toward the edge of the compound. Behind her, Graves was being helped to his feet by two men who no longer looked at him with respect. And in the shadow beside Building 7, 400 meters away, a man lowered his binoculars. Master Chief Garrett Phantom Sullivan was 61 years old, gray at the temples, eyes that had seen too much in too many countries that officially didn't exist. 43 years of service, more decorations than he could count, more kills than he could remember. He had watched his daughter dismantle 5 operators in 12 seconds. And for the first time in 4 years, he felt something other than the cold certainty that had defined his life since Grenada. He felt pride. The problem was he had no idea how to tell her. Reese made it 50 yards before her legs started shaking. Adrenaline crash. The familiar companion of every operator who had ever pushed through trauma on willpower alone. The body's delayed response to danger. The price of shutting down fear in the moment. She found a concrete barrier and sat, her back against rough stone, her hands trembling as she tried to wrap her torn wrists with strips from her ruined shirt. The bleeding wouldn't stop. Deep cuts from the zip ties. She'd need stitches. She didn't care. That was impressive. The voice came from her right. Reese looked up. Wade Briscoe approached. He moved like water, quiet, economical. The walk of a man who had learned that unnecessary motion got you killed. Petty Officer Briscoe, Reese said. Her voice was steady, professional. Thank you for speaking up. Call me Wade. He sat on the barrier beside her. Not too close, giving her space. And I didn't speak up for you. I spoke up for what's right. Is there a difference? Sometimes. He pulled a first aid kit from his cargo pocket, handed it to her without comment. Reese took it. Started wrapping her wrists properly. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. You were in the bleachers, she said. You didn't move when Graves tied me up. Neither did 396 other operators. That's supposed to make it better. No, it's supposed to explain why I'm here now. Wade watched her work on her wrists. His face was unreadable. What Graves did was wrong, he said. What he said was worse. But challenging him publicly would have ended my career without helping you. So you waited until I handled it myself. I waited until you proved you could. Now I can help without it looking like I'm protecting the helpless female. Reese tied off the bandage, looked at him. You've thought about this before. I've thought about Graves before. He's been building towards something like this for months, ever since the integration announcement. Wade paused. I served with your father. 3 deployments, the kind that don't show up in official records. Everyone served with my father, Reese said, bitterness creeping into her voice for the first time. Not everyone survived what we survived together. Something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. Which deployment? The one that doesn't exist, the one that earned him the call sign Phantom. Reese felt her heart rate spike. Grenada. Wade nodded. October 1983, Point Salines. I was 20 years old. New guy, first deployment. We walked into an ambush. Cuban forces, 50 of them, 8 of us. He stared at nothing, seeing something 4 decades old. Our team, Master Chief, Donovan Iron, they called him. He stepped into the kill zone to cover our retreat. Your father was right there, 20 years old, same age as me. He had a clear shot to pull Donovan back. What happened? Your father let him die. The words hung in the air. He chose the mission over the man, Wade continued. Let Donovan die so the rest of us could complete the objective and extract. 7 men survived because 1 man died. Mathematics, cold calculation. Wade turned to look at her. Your father became Phantom that day, got the call sign because he learned to disappear, learned to operate in shadows, learned to make the hard calls without hesitation. Why are you telling me this? Because he doesn't talk about Grenada, ever. He buried Master Chief Donovan along with the part of himself that hesitated, the part that questioned, the part that was human. Wade stood. And then you went to Syria. You saw Torres step toward that IED, and you made the opposite choice your father made. Reese felt tears threatening. She blinked them back. I got 2 men killed. You saved 1 man's life knowing it might cost others. That's not calculation. That's courage, pure courage. The kind your father spent 43 years trying to achieve and never could. He called me a disgrace. He called you a disgrace because you proved he was a coward. The words hit like a physical blow. Wade's voice softened. Listen, Graves isn't done. What happened today, he'll spin it. Assault, evidence that women can't control themselves, proof that integration creates violence. He attacked me first. He'll say you provoked him. He'll say you were insubordinate. He'll say whatever he needs to say to protect his worldview. Wade looked toward the compound. You need allies, Reese, and you need them fast. Why are you offering? Because your father saved my life in a place I can't name, and I never got the chance to repay him. He started walking away, stopped, turned back. Maybe helping his daughter is the next best thing. He disappeared around the corner of a building. Reese sat alone, blood seeping through the bandages on her wrists, her torn shirt hanging open, her body starting to register the damage she'd ignored during the fight. Bruised ribs, possibly cracked, cut on her temples still bleeding, left knee swelling. She'd landed on it wrong during the takedown. She didn't care about any of it. Her father had saved Wade Briscoe's life. Her father had created the legend that Graves worshipped. Her father had stopped speaking to her because she had done something he couldn't understand, something he couldn't accept. And somewhere on this base, her father was watching. She could feel it, the same instinct that had saved her in Syria. The awareness of being observed by someone who mattered. The sixth sense that came from growing up with a man who taught her to read environments before she could read books. I know you're there, she said quietly. Silence answered her. I've always known. But she was right, 50 yards away, hidden in the shadow of Building 7, standing where he'd stood for the past 2 hours. Master Chief Garrett Sullivan wiped tears from his face and tried to find the courage to step into the light. He had faced down enemy forces in 17 countries. He had killed men in rooms that officially didn't exist. He had earned every decoration the Navy could give an enlisted operator. But he couldn't walk 50 yards to talk to his own daughter because he was afraid. Afraid that the words he had spoken 4 years ago had destroyed something that couldn't be rebuilt. Afraid that she had become something greater than he had ever been. Afraid that if he tried to explain, tried to apologize, she would look at him the way she had looked at Graves, with contempt, with disappointment, with the understanding that he was just another man who had underestimated her. Garrett Sullivan had spent 43 years becoming a legend. He had never learned how to be a father, and standing in that shadow watching his daughter bleed from wounds inflicted by men who worshipped his name, he finally understood the price of that failure. The summons came 3 hours later. Captain William Hayes sat behind a desk that had seen 100 difficult conversations. His face was a mask of professional neutrality. 62 years old, career Navy. The kind of officer who had learned to navigate the impossible space between doing what was right and following orders. Staff Sergeant Sullivan, have a seat. Reese sat. Her wrists were properly bandaged now. Medical had stitched the cuts. 14 stitches total, 7 on each wrist. The corpsman had asked no questions, just did the work and sent her on her way. I've received a formal complaint from Senior Chief Graves, Hayes said. I expected you would, sir. He claims you initiated physical contact. He claims you assaulted 4 of his men without provocation. He claims this incident proves that integrated training creates an unacceptable risk of violence. Hayes paused. What do you say to that? I say Senior Chief Graves tied me to a fence in front of 400 witnesses, sir. I say he left me there for 30 minutes while he delivered a speech about what happens when little girls play soldier. I say when I freed myself using techniques I learned as a child, he and 4 of his men attempted to restrain me using force. Did you strike first? Define first, or? Hayes almost smiled. Almost. The legal definition. Then no, sir. Senior Chief Graves grabbed my hair and slammed my face into the fence before his men tied me up. That constitutes assault. My response was self-defense. You knocked out 5 men in 12 seconds. Yes, sir. That's not self-defense. That's combat. Reese met his eyes. With respect, sir, self-defense and combat are the same thing when you're outnumbered 5-1. Hayes leaned back in his chair, studied her. You know what the problem is, Staff Sergeant? No, sir. The problem is you're right about everything. Graves assaulted you. You defended yourself. You used appropriate force given the circumstances. He paused. But being right doesn't mean you win. I don't understand, sir. Graves has friends, powerful friends, people who see integration as a threat to everything they've built. They don't care about facts. They care about narrative. Hayes stood, walked to the window, looked out at the compound. The narrative they're building is this: women in combat create conflict. Women in combat get emotional. Women in combat can't be trusted under pressure. That's not what happened. I know what happened. I have 397 witnesses who saw Graves tie you to a fence. I have medical records showing defensive wounds consistent with your account. I have everything I need to crucify Graves and vindicate you. He turned to face her. And it won't matter, because the people who want integration to fail will spin this as proof that they were right all along. Reese felt something cold settle in her stomach. So what happens now, sir? Now you make a choice. What choice? Hayes returned to his desk, sat, folded his hands. Choice 1, you request a transfer, return to the 75th Rangers. Continue your career somewhere that doesn't require you to face Graves and his allies every day. You leave Coronado. You leave integration. You survive. He paused. Choice 2, you stay. You complete your assignment as assistant combat instructor. You prove that integration works despite everything being done to make it fail. And if you stay, Graves will come at you again. Harder. With better preparation. He'll find ways to provoke you that don't leave witnesses. He'll make your life a living hell until you quit, or he breaks you. He can't break me, sir. Hayes looked at her with something that might have been pity. Everyone can be broken, Staff Sergeant. The question is whether the breaking is worth the building that comes after. Reese thought about Syria. 14 minutes with a collapsed lung, the faces of Caleb Porter and Tyler Vaughn. The weight of their names, the 4 years of silence from a father who couldn't admit his daughter had surpassed him. I'm staying, sir. Hayes nodded slowly. I expected you would. He stood again. There's one more thing you should know. What's that, sir? Your father is on base. Reese felt the world tilt. He arrived this morning, before the incident with Graves. He came to see me, requested permission to observe your training. Hayes walked to the window again. He wanted to watch without you knowing he was there. He saw everything. It wasn't a question. He saw everything, Hayes confirmed. The fence, the fight, the aftermath. Reese stood. Her legs felt weak. Where is he now? Waiting outside my office. Why? Because he's requesting permission to speak with you, and I'm asking if you want to grant it. 4 years. 4 years of silence. 4 years of wondering what she'd done wrong. 4 years of carrying the weight of his disapproval on top of everything else. And now he wanted to talk. Send him in, Reese said. Her voice didn't shake. Hayes walked to the door, opened it, and there he was. Master Chief Garrett Phantom Sullivan. 61 years old, 6 feet tall, still lean and hard despite his age. Gray at the temples. Lines around his eyes that spoke of decades squinting into hostile suns. Hands that had killed more men than most people would ever meet. He walked into the office like he was entering a combat zone. Cautious, alert, ready for anything. Except his daughter. He wasn't ready for her. Reese. The word came out rough, like he hadn't used her name in years, which he hadn't. Father. Professional, cold. The voice of a subordinate addressing a superior officer. Hayes quietly exited, closed the door behind him. Father and daughter stood alone. Garrett cleared his throat. You look different. 4 years will do that. I meant today, you look stronger. I've had to be. Silence stretched between them, thick, heavy, 4 years of words unsaid. I watched you, Garrett finally said, at the fence when Graves, I know. How I always know when you're watching, ever since I was a kid. You think you're invisible, but you're not. Not to me. Garrett absorbed this, what I said, after Syria. Those 4 words, you should have let him die. She said the words without inflection, just stating a fact. I didn't mean, Reese held up her hand. Don't tell me you didn't mean it. You meant every word. You were angry that I saved Torres instead of preserving the team. Angry that I got hurt. Angry that Porter and Vaughn died. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Garrett's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Afraid that you were better than me. The words fell into silence. Reese stared at him. What are 43 years, Reese? 43 years of training, fighting, sacrificing. I became what I became through blood and pain and the deaths of friends I still see when I close my eyes. His voice cracked. And then you, my daughter. You did something in a single mission that I never managed to do in all those years. What did I do? You chose someone else's life over your own, without hesitation, without calculation, without the 1,000 thoughts that always ran through my head when I faced those moments. He stepped closer. That's what heroes do. That's what soldiers do. No, soldiers think, soldiers calculate, soldiers weigh options and make decisions. Garrett shook his head. You didn't decide to save Torres, you just moved. Pure instinct, pure courage, pure everything I spent my whole career trying to become, and never quite achieved. Reese felt tears burning behind her eyes. So you stopped talking to me because I was better than you. I stopped talking to you because I couldn't handle what you'd become. Because every time I looked at you, I saw my own inadequacy staring back. Because the legend everyone worships the phantom is just a story I told myself to survive. His voice broke completely. And you proved that story was a lie. That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. I know. 4 years. 4 years of thinking I'd failed you. I know. 4 years of wondering what I did wrong. I know. 4 years of carrying the weight of your silence on top of Porter and Vaughn and everything else. I know. Garrett's face was wet now, tears running unchecked. And it was because of your ego, because you couldn't handle the fact that your daughter was brave enough to do what you never could. Not brave, better. He met her eyes. You held the line, Reese. You held it better than I ever did. And I spent 4 years punishing you for it because I was too small to be proud. The dam broke. Reese felt the tears come. 4 years of holding everything in. 4 years of carrying Porter and Vaughn. 4 years of her father's silence. All of it came out. She didn't sob, didn't make a sound, just stood there with tears streaming down her face while her father watched. What now, she managed. Now I'm here, and I'm not leaving. And if Graves comes at you again, I don't need your protection. I know. I watched you prove that. Garrett's voice softened. But you deserve to know that someone has your back, even if that someone spent 4 years forgetting how to be a father. Reese looked at this man, this legend, this ghost, this stranger who shared her blood but not her life for 4 years. Why now? Why today? Because Wade Briscoe called me last week. He told me what Graves was planning. He told me my daughter was walking into an ambush. He told me I was the only one who might be able to stop it. You didn't stop it. I was too late. By the time I arrived, you were already tied to that fence. Garrett's face twisted with pain. I watched you break free. I watched you fight. I watched you prove everything I was afraid of. And what were you afraid of? That you didn't need me. That everything I taught you had worked too well. That my daughter had become the warrior I always wanted to be. And I had nothing left to offer except a name that wasn't worth carrying. Reese felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something that might become forgiveness given time. The name is worth carrying, she said quietly. Is it? It means something. Not because of the legend. Because of what you taught me. Joint locks at 8, chokes at 10. The understanding that strength wasn't about size. It was about knowledge and will, and refusing to quit. She paused. You didn't teach me courage. That was always mine. But you taught me how to channel it, how to survive long enough to use it. Garrett's eyes glistened. That's not enough. Maybe not, but it's a start. She extended her hand, not for a handshake, for something more. Garrett looked at her bandaged wrist, the wound inflicted by his legacy, by men who worshipped his name while destroying his daughter. He took her hand, Bo. For the first time in 4 years, father and daughter stood together instead of apart. Graves isn't finished, Reese said. I know. He'll come harder, smarter. He'll find allies, build a case, try to destroy everything I'm building here. I know. Are you ready for that? Garrett Sullivan legend. Phantom absent father squeezed his daughter's hand. I've been ready my whole life. I was just too afraid to admit it. Outside Captain Hayes' office, the California sun climbed toward noon. The compound was empty now. The operators had dispersed, gone back to their training, their lives, their certainties about how the world worked and who belonged where. But something had changed. They had seen Reese Sullivan tied to a fence. They had seen her break free. They had seen her prove that strength had nothing to do with size or gender or any of the assumptions they'd built their identities on. And some of them, not all, but some had started to wonder if maybe the world was bigger than they'd been told. If maybe courage looked different than they'd been taught. If maybe Phantom's daughter was teaching them something more valuable than any technique or tactic. She was teaching them that legends were just people who had learned to hide their fear behind call signs and decorated chests, and that the bravest thing any of them could do was admit when they were wrong. Reese walked out of Hayes' office with her father beside her. The war was just beginning. But for the first time in 4 years, she wasn't fighting it alone. The first thing people never understand about violence is how quiet it is. In movies, fights are loud, grunting and shouting and dramatic music. Bones breaking sound like gunshots. Every punch lands with the force of a car crash. Real violence is different. Real violence is the sound of air leaving lungs. The wet click of a joint moving in a direction it wasn't designed to go. The hollow thump of a body hitting the floor. Real violence happens in the space between heartbeats. And for Alexis Morgan, it had been exactly 1,826 days since the last time she'd needed to be violent. Until now, her hand moved first. Not a slap, not a punch, a nerve strike. Precision targeting. The kind of technique they teach you in advanced close quarters combat when killing someone is easy but controlling them is hard. Her thumb found the radial nerve in Brock's wrist, right where the bone meets the tendon, 2 inches below the base of his thumb. She pressed. Not hard, just exactly hard enough. Brock's hand opened like she'd hit a release switch. Involuntary, instantaneous. The kind of response that bypasses conscious thought and goes straight to the spinal cord screaming that something is very wrong. He yelped. Actually yelped, like a dog that just got its tail stepped on. His brain was still processing what happened when Lex's other hand moved to his jacket. She felt the weapon, Glock 19, just like she'd thought, tucked into an appendix holster, loaded, chambered. Safety off because Brock Harrigan was the kind of man who thought carrying a gun made him dangerous instead of just armed. Her fingers found the grip, drew it, smooth, fast, the muscle memory of 10,000 repetitions at the range. Brock's eyes went wide. What the magazine release, her thumb found it without looking. Pressed. The magazine dropped free. She caught it with her left hand before it hit the table. Her right hand racked the slide. The chambered round ejected. Spun in the air. She caught that too. 3 seconds. Weapon neutralized. Magazine in her left pocket. Round in her right. Empty Glock in her hand. Brock was still trying to figure out what just happened when she set the pistol on the table between them. Condition 3, she said quietly, the way you should have been carrying it. Then she moved. Garrett Finch came from her left, the follower. The one who'd been standing there, watching this whole thing spiral and thinking maybe he should do something. He did something. He tried to grab her. Both hands, going for her shoulders, probably thinking he'd just wrap her up, hold her down, let Brock figure out what to do next. Amateur. Lex sidestepped. Basic footwork, the kind of movement that's so ingrained you don't think about it anymore. You just feel the angle, feel the weight shift, feel where the attack is coming from and where it's going and all the empty space in between. Garrett's momentum carried him forward, past her, toward the table. She helped him along. Her hand found the back of his head, not pushing, guiding, using his own force against him. Aikido principle. The hardest thing in martial arts isn't learning how to hit. It's learning how to not hit, to redirect, to make someone defeat themselves. Garrett's ribs met the corner of the table, not the flat surface, the corner, the sharp edge where wood meets more wood at 90 degrees. The air left his lungs in a sound like a punctured tire. He folded, collapsed, hit the floor gasping. Not dead, not permanently injured, just very thoroughly reminded that his body has limits and he'd just found one of them. 5 seconds. Lane Sutherland was faster. The lean one, the nervous energy, the one who'd shoved the plaid shirt man. He came at her from behind, tried for a sucker punch, aimed at the back of her head, the kind of coward shot that can kill someone if it lands right. It didn't land. Lex felt him coming, heard the shift in his breathing, the scuff of his shoe on the floor. The tiny tells that separate trained fighters from drunk idiots who watch too much UFC. She turned, blocked. Her forearm met his wrist, deflected the punch up and away. Then her elbow came back down. Solar plexus, center mass, right below the sternum where all the nerve clusters live. Lane made a sound like he'd been hit with a baseball bat. His legs turned to water. He sagged. Lex grabbed him, kept him from falling. Because there was a family with 2 kids at the table behind him, and she didn't need a 200-pound man collapsing onto their dinner. She needed to end this, fast, clean, with the minimum amount of property damage and the maximum amount of humiliation. Her hand shot out, grabbed something from the table next to her, a dinner roll, fresh baked, still warm from the oven, probably cost $4. Lane was gasping, mouth open, trying to get air back into lungs that had just forgotten how to work. Lex stuffed the roll in his mouth, not gently. His eyes went wide, confused, panicked, probably wondering what kind of person weaponizes bread. Chew on that, she said. Then she swept his legs. Basic judo, ogoshi, the kind of throw you learn in week 2 because it works on people who don't know it's coming and people who do know it's coming, and people who are too drunk to know anything at all. Lane hit the floor, hard. The roll bounced out of his mouth, rolled across the carpet, came to rest next to the salad bar. 8 seconds. Brock Harrigan was done being surprised. He roared. Actual roar. The sound of a man who just had his weapon taken, his friends dropped, and his ego shattered in front of 40 witnesses. He charged. 6'3", 240, former Army Ranger before the dishonorable discharge. He knew how to fight, knew how to use his size, knew how to turn his body into a weapon. Under different circumstances, he might have been dangerous. But Lex had trained with SEALs, had sparred with men who could bench press 300 pounds and run a 6-minute mile and still move like water when they needed to. Brock Harrigan was big, but he was slow. She waited until he was close, until his weight was committed, until there was no way to stop or change direction or do anything except crash into whatever was in front of him. Then she wasn't there anymore. Pivot, left foot, right foot, turn the hips, let him pass. Her hands found his leading arm, the one stretched out trying to grab her, trying to wrap her up and use his size to overwhelm her. She grabbed it, both hands, wrist and elbow. Then she used everything she'd learned in 5 years of military combatives training. Momentum, leverage, geometry. She pulled, twisted, used Brock's own force against him, redirected 240 pounds of drunk anger into the one place it couldn't go. The corner of the table. His face met oak, not hard enough to shatter bone. She wasn't trying to kill him, just stop him, but hard enough that his nose broke with a sound like a carrot snapping. Blood sprayed. Brock made a sound between a scream and a wheeze, sagged against the table, slid down, and then there was silence. 17 seconds. 3 men down. Lex stood in the middle of the wreckage, breathing steady, pulse barely elevated. Her dress had a small tear near the shoulder. One of them must have caught it. She'd fix it later. The restaurant had gone completely still. 40-some people frozen mid-bite, wine glasses suspended in air. Conversations stopped mid-sentence like someone hit pause on reality. A baby started clapping. Someone's phone was recording. She could see the red light, could see the way people were staring, not scared, not angry, impressed, horrified, both. The plaid shirt man was still standing, hands half raised like he'd been about to help but never got the chance. He stared at her. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "What are you?" Lex looked down at Brock, blood pouring from his broken nose, conscious but not coherent, his friends on the floor. One gasping, one chewing breadcrumbs. She picked up her purse, checked inside. The cig was still there, untouched. She'd neutralized 3 men without even drawing her own weapon. Old habits. She turned to the plaid shirt man, held out Brock's Glock magazine and the chambered round. "Former Navy," she said, "and he was carrying with one in the chamber. Safety off. That's reckless." The man took the magazine, looked at it, looked at her, looked at the 3 bodies on the floor. "I was going to help you." "I know. Thank you for trying." She meant it. He'd stood up when everyone else stayed seated. He'd tried to do the right thing. That mattered. Even if it almost got him hurt. Brock groaned, tried to sit up, failed. Lex knelt down beside him, close enough to whisper. "You made 3 mistakes tonight. 1, you assumed I was weak because I'm alone. 2, you carried a weapon you weren't trained to use. 3, you put your hands on someone without permission." She stood up, looked around the restaurant, at all the phones pointed at her, at all the faces staring. This was going to be a problem, but that was future Lex's problem. Right now, she just needed to get out. She reached into her purse, pulled out a folded $100 bill, placed it on the table next to her untouched dinner. "Apologies for the disturbance," she said to no one in particular. These gentlemen appeared to be having a medical episode. Then she walked toward the exit. Nobody stopped her. Nobody said a word. She was almost to the door when she heard it. "Ma'am," deep voice, authority, the kind of voice that's used to being obeyed. Lex turned. A man stood near the entrance. Late 50s, graying hair cut military short, jeans and a button-down shirt, wedding ring, and something in his posture that screamed law enforcement even without the badge. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stay put for a minute." Lex's hand didn't move toward her purse. Didn't need to. She could read him in half a second. Off-duty cop. Probably detective. Came here for a quiet dinner with his wife. Got a floor show instead. "Of course," she said. He walked closer, not aggressive, just careful. The way you approach someone who just demonstrated they can take apart three men without breaking a sweat. Detective Randall Kavanaugh, he said, showed his badge. Billings PD, 20-year veteran if the wear on the leather case was any indication. You want to tell me what just happened here? Lex kept her voice calm, even. The way you talk to police when you've got nothing to hide but everything to lose. Three men approached my table. I asked them to leave. They refused. When I tried to leave, they prevented me. The situation escalated when they became physical with another customer. She gestured to the plaid shirt man. He nodded. That's true, I tried to help. One of them shoved me. She intervened. Kavanaugh looked at the three men on the floor. EMTs were arriving now, pushing through the crowd. Someone must have called 911. Intervened, Kavanaugh repeated. That's one word for it. He looked at Lex, really looked at her, past the dress, past the makeup, looking for something. You military, it wasn't really a question. Was, Lex said, 5 years ago. Branch Navy. Rate, she hesitated, not because she didn't want to tell him, because saying it out loud meant explaining things she didn't want to explain. Special warfare operator. Kavanaugh's eyebrows went up, just slightly, just enough to show he knew what that meant. Women can't be SEALs. Officially, you're right. They stared at each other. A whole conversation happening in the silence between words. He understood. She could see it. The recognition, the respect, the way one operator recognizes another. I'm going to need to see some ID, he said, and you're going to need to give a statement. Of course. She handed him her driver's license. Montana State, current address, real name. Alexis Morgan. He looked at it, pulled out his phone, made a call. Lex couldn't hear the other end, but she could hear his side. Duke Kavanaugh, yeah, I need you to run a name for me. Morgan, Alexis, Montana driver's license. Yeah, I'll hold. He waited, looked at Lex, looked at the scene, looked at his phone. Uh-huh, Navy. What kind of discharge, honorable? Any decorations, Navy Achievement Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. Jesus. And she's here in Billings. Okay, thanks. He hung up, looked at Lex with new eyes. Says here you got the Combat Action Ribbon. That's rare for women who served your years. I was in Afghanistan. Doing what? Classified. He almost smiled. Almost. Right, of course it is. Behind them, the EMTs were loading Brock onto a gurney. Broken nose. Possible concussion. His friends were walking wounded. Bruised ribs. Bruised ego. Nothing permanent. Kavanaugh watched them go, then looked back at Lex. You know any martial arts? Some. Some, right. He shook his head. I was Marine infantry. Gulf War. I know what a some means when someone with your background says it. I used the minimum force necessary to stop the threat. The threat? You sound like a training manual. Old habits. Yeah, I bet. More police arrived, uniforms, taking statements, photographing the scene, treating it like an assault investigation because technically that's what it was. Kavanaugh pulled her aside, away from the crowd, away from the phones and the witnesses. Here's the situation, he said quietly. Those three men assaulted you. They assaulted another customer. You defended yourself. By the book, you're in the clear. But one of them has a broken nose and a concussion. One has bruised ribs, and there's video of you taking all three down in about 15 seconds. 17 seconds. He blinked. You counted. Muscle memory. Kavanaugh rubbed his face. Tired. This wasn't how his Saturday night was supposed to go. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. You're not in trouble. But this is going to be a thing. Videos are already posting. People are going to want to know who you are, what you did, why you're here. I just wanted dinner. I believe you, but that doesn't change what happens next. He was right. She knew he was right. This was going viral, local news at minimum, maybe national if it was a slow news cycle. Her face, her name, her past, all of it about to be exposed because three drunk idiots couldn't take no for an answer. I need to make a call, Kavanaugh said. Someone who can vouch for you. Someone local. You got anyone? Lex didn't hesitate. Colonel Frank Mercer, retired. He lives about 40 miles from here. Kavanaugh's expression changed, just slightly. Frank Mercer, Gulf War. Frank Mercer, SEAL Team 8. You know him. Know him, we served together. Different units, same theater. He saved my life in Kuwait. How the hell do you know Frank Mercer? He was my CO, Afghanistan. Kavanaugh stared at her for 3 full seconds, Then he pulled out his phone. The conversation was short. Lex couldn't hear Mercer's side, but she could hear Kavanaugh's. Frank, it's Duke. Yeah, long time. Listen, I got a situation. Female vet named Alexis Morgan just took down 3 men at a restaurant. Says she served under you. Can you confirm? Pause. Yeah, that's what I thought. She okay? Yeah, they're not. You should probably come down here. Blackstone Grill. Yeah, see you soon. He hung up, looked at Lex. He's on his way. Sounded worried about you. He worries. He should. You just put 3 men in the hospital. They'll live. That's not the point. Lex knew what he meant. The point wasn't the damage. The point was the capability. The point was that she just demonstrated to 40 witnesses that she was dangerous in a way most people couldn't even imagine. And once people knew you were dangerous, they never looked at you the same way again. 30 minutes later, Colonel Frank Mercer walked through the door. Lex saw him before he saw her. Tall, silver-haired, 67 years old and still walking like he owned every room he entered. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, civilian clothes. But the bearing was pure military. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes found her. Relief, concern, pride. All of it flashing across his face in half a second before he locked it down. He walked over, didn't hug her. SEALs don't hug, but his hand found her shoulder, squeezed. You okay, kid? I'm fine, sir. Duke filled me in, said you handled yourself. I did what I had to do. Mercer looked around, at the police tape, at the witnesses still giving statements, at the phones that had recorded everything. This is going to be complicated. I know. But you're not in trouble. Duke's a good cop. He'll make sure this gets handled right. Kavanaugh walked over. The 2 men shook hands. Brothers in arms. The kind of bond that doesn't fade just because the war ended. Frank, been too long. Duke, thanks for calling me. She's one of yours. Best operator I ever trained. Made a shot in Helmand that saved a hostage's life. Navy wanted to bury it. I made sure they didn't. Kavanaugh looked at Lex with new understanding. The tribunal, I read about that. Classified OP. Female SEAL shoots through a hostage to kill the captor. Navy cleared her, but she still got out. Not by choice, Mercer said. His voice had an edge. They pushed her out because she made them look bad. Made everyone who said women couldn't hack it look like idiots. Well, she just proved it again. The 3 of them stood there. 2 older warriors and 1 younger one. All of them knowing how this story ended. Lex would give her statement. The police would investigate. The video would go viral. And for the next few weeks, maybe months, she'd be the woman who took down 3 men in 17 seconds. And everyone would want to know why, how, what she was. We should go, Mercer said. Let Duke do his job. We can talk at the ranch. I need her statement first, Kavanaugh said. But yeah, after that, get her out of here. Press is already showing up. Lex looked toward the entrance. News vans, cameras, reporters setting up shots. Too late to be invisible. Too late to be normal. She gave her statement. Clear, concise, no embellishment, just the facts. 3 men approached, refused to leave, became physical. She defended herself using minimal necessary force. Kavanaugh wrote it all down, had her sign it, gave her a case number. You'll probably hear from the DA's office, he said, but I don't think you'll be charged. Self-defense is pretty clear, and those guys all have records. Records. The big one, Brock Harrigan, dishonorably discharged from the Army. Assault on his record. His buddies aren't much better. Lex nodded, didn't say anything. Didn't need to. She'd known, had read it in his eyes, in the way he moved, in the anger that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with who he used to be. Mercer drove her home. His truck, old Ford, still ran like new because Mercer maintained his equipment the way he maintained his operators. They didn't talk until they were outside the city, until the lights faded and the Montana darkness swallowed them. You want to tell me what you were doing there, Mercer asked, trying to have dinner. Alone in a fancy restaurant, wearing a dress. It's been 5 years, sir. I thought I should try. Try what? Being normal. Mercer was quiet for a long time. Just the sound of tires on asphalt, the rumble of the engine. Lex, he said finally, normal's overrated. You know that, right? I'm starting to. You're not built for normal. Neither am I. We're built for the hard stuff, the impossible stuff. The stuff that breaks normal people. I'm tired of being broken. You're not broken. You're just trying to fit into a space that was never made for you. He pulled over, side of the road. Middle of nowhere, killed the engine. I've been working on something, he said. At the ranch, been working on it for 2 years. What kind of something? A training facility for veterans. People like us who can't figure out how to be civilians. People who need purpose, structure, a mission. Lex turned to look at him. You're training people. 15 so far, all placed in security jobs, executive protection, high-risk environments, places where being dangerous is actually useful. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't ready. Still building it, still figuring it out. But after tonight, he looked at her. I think I need a second instructor. Someone who can teach what I can't anymore. Someone who still has the edge. Sir, I don't know if I'm... You just took down 3 men without breaking a sweat, without even drawing your weapon. You know what that is. He's stupid to mastery. That's what I need. What they need. Someone who can show them that strength isn't about violence. It's about control. Lex looked out the window, at the darkness, at the stars. What if I screw it up? Then you'll screw it up the same way I did. The same way we all do, by trying, by caring, by giving a damn when it would be easier not to. He started the engine, pulled back onto the road. Think about it, no pressure, but the offer's there. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When Mercer dropped her off at her apartment, he handed her his phone. You're going to get calls tomorrow. Press, maybe lawyers, maybe the Pentagon. The Pentagon, that video is going to make the rounds. Someone's going to recognize you. Someone's going to connect the bombs, and they're going to remember why they pushed you out. Because I made them look bad. Because you proved them wrong, and people hate being wrong. Lex took the phone, looked at the screen. 3 missed calls already, all unknown numbers. Get some sleep, Mercer said. We'll figure this out tomorrow. She went inside, locked the door, sat on her mattress on the floor. Her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Ms. Morgan, this is Vice Admiral Catherine Brennan, Naval Special Warfare Command. We need to talk. Please call at your earliest convenience. Lex stared at the message. The Pentagon. They wanted her back. 5 years after they pushed her out. 5 years after they told her she was too good and too dangerous and too much of a PR problem. Now they wanted her back. She set the phone down, lay back, stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in Billings, 3 men were in the hospital. One with a broken nose, one with bruised ribs, one with wounded pride and a mouthful of breadcrumbs. Somewhere online, a video was spreading, 17 seconds of violence. Her face, her name, her life about to be dissected by strangers who would never understand. And somewhere 40 miles away, Colonel Frank Mercer was building something. A place for people like her. People who didn't fit. People who were too sharp for civilian life, but too broken for military service. A place where dangerous might actually mean useful. Lex closed her eyes. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't dream about Helmand. She dreamed about what came next. The call came at 0600. Lex was already awake, had been since 0430. The body doesn't forget its rhythms just because you take off the uniform. She sat on her mattress watching Montana dawn break through her window. Gray light, cold. The kind of morning that feels like the universe hasn't decided yet if today matters. Her phone rang, Washington, D.C. area code. She let it ring 3 times, considered not answering, considered throwing the phone out the window and pretending yesterday hadn't happened. But operators don't run from hard conversations. She answered. Morgan? Ms. Morgan, this is Vice Admiral Catherine Brennan, Naval Special Warfare Command. Do you have a few minutes? The voice was crisp, no nonsense. The kind of voice that spent decades giving orders and expecting them to be followed. Lex sat straighter, even though no one could see her, even though she'd been out for 5 years. Some habits run deeper than others. Yes, ma'am. I'll be direct. Your incident at Blackstone Grill made it to my desk by 0300 this morning. I've watched the video multiple times. I've read Detective Kavanaugh's report. And I've reviewed your complete service record, including the Helmand Tribunal transcripts. Lex said nothing, waited, let the Admiral control the conversation. The Helmand decision was tactically sound. Your shot saved Daniel Cross's life. But the optics were complicated. The Navy in 2019 wasn't ready for what you represented. I understand, ma'am. I'm not sure you do. Papers rustled on the other end. What you represented then you still represent now. A female operator with capabilities that rival or exceed most of our male counterparts. Last night you demonstrated those capabilities to 40 witnesses and APAW's currently 12 million people online. 12 million. The number hit like a gut punch. Ma'am, I didn't intend it. No one ever does. But here we are. Which brings me to why I'm calling. More papers. The sound of someone who'd been up all night making decisions that would affect careers. Naval Special Warfare is expanding our female integration program. The first official class of female SEAL candidates starts in 8 months. We need experienced instructors, people who've been there, done it, survived it. You fit that profile better than anyone in the country. You're offering me a job. Civilian contractor, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, California. $135,000 per year plus full federal benefits. You'd be training the next generation of female operators, shaping the program, proving that what happened to you won't happen to them. Lex stood, walked to her window, looked out at Billings waking up. Delivery trucks, early risers, the ordinary machinery of civilian life grinding forward. Ma'am, with respect, 5 years ago, your predecessors pushed me out, called my judgment questionable, said I was a liability. Silence, long enough that Lex wondered if she'd crossed a line. Then Brennan laughed, short, sharp, real. You've got spine, Morgan. I like that. Yes, they made a mistake. I wasn't in command then, but I'm in command now, and I'm trying to correct it. By bringing me back to train women to do exactly what I was court-martialed for doing. By bringing you back to train them to make the impossible choices, the hard calls, the shots that save lives even when the bureaucrats don't understand the math. Lex closed her eyes. This was everything she'd wanted 5 years ago. Validation, vindication, a chance to prove the people who pushed her out were wrong. But 5 years changes a person. Ma'am, I appreciate the offer. I need time to think about it. How long? 72 hours. A pause, then fair. But Morgan understands something. That video isn't going away. People are going to want to know who you are, what you did, where you've been. If you don't control your narrative, someone else will. The Pentagon can help with that. Or not. Your choice. Understood, ma'am. 72 hours. I'll expect your call. The line went dead. Lex set the phone down, looked at her reflection in the window glass. Same face, same eyes. But something fundamental had shifted. 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of civilian life. Now she was viral, known, exposed. Her phone buzzed again. Text from Mercer. Saw the news. Come to the ranch. We need to talk. Now! She grabbed her keys. The drive took 45 minutes through Montana back roads. Long enough to see the sun fully rise. Long enough to count how many times she checked her mirrors. 17. Still scanning for threats that weren't there. Long enough to think about what came next. Mercer's ranch appeared through morning mist like something out of a Steinbeck novel. 40 acres. Split rail fence. The main house weathered and solid, and beyond it something new. A building. Modern construction, metal siding, solar panels, a shooting range extending into the hills behind it. Mercer stood on the porch, coffee in one hand, waiting. Lex parked, got out, walked up the steps. Morning, sir. Morning, kid, you look like hell. Didn't sleep much. I bet. He handed her a mug, coffee, black, strong enough to dissolve a spoon. Pentagon call yet. 0600, Vice Admiral Brennan wants me to train female SEAL candidates at Coronado. $135 a year plus benefits. Mercer nodded, didn't look surprised. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. And are you thinking about it? Lex took a sip, burned her tongue, didn't care. 5 years ago, I would have killed for that offer. But now I don't know if I want to work for people who threw me away the first time. Mercer leaned against the porch rail, looked out at his land, at the mountains, at the future he'd been building while she'd been failing at civilian life. Let me tell you something about the Navy, he said. I gave them 40 years, best years of my life. Believed in the mission, believed in the men, believed that what we were doing mattered. He paused, drank his coffee. And it did matter, every day of it. But here's what I learned at 65 when I took off the uniform for the last time. He turned to look at her. The Navy didn't make me who I am. I made me who I am. The uniform was just what I wore while I did it. Sir, I don't understand. What I'm saying is you don't owe them a damn thing. They had their chance with you. They blew it. Now you get to decide what comes next, not them. You. Lex looked at the building. What is that? That's what I wanted to show you. Come on. They walked across frost-covered grass, the sun climbing higher, Montana morning burning off the mist. Up close, the building was impressive. Professional, 10,000 square feet of purpose-built facility. Mercer unlocked the door, let her inside. The interior took her breath away. Gym equipment, combat mats, a small armory behind reinforced glass, classroom space with whiteboards covered in tactical diagrams, computer stations, living quarters, a full commercial kitchen, and everywhere signs of recent use. Sweat marks on the mats, targets with tight groupings, coffee cups in the classroom, boots lined up by the door. Mercer Defense Institute, he said. 2 years in the making. First graduating class was 6 months ago. 8 students, all veterans, all struggling, all employed now in security positions. He walked her through, showed her the curriculum posted on the walls, advanced tactical training, de-escalation protocols, threat assessment, PTSD counseling, resume writing, interview prep, job placement assistance. It's not just about teaching them to fight, Mercer explained. It's about teaching them when not to fight, how to recognize the difference between a threat and a trigger, how to use their training without letting it control them. They reached the classroom. Photos covered one wall. Graduates, men and women, different ages, different branches, all wearing the same expression. Hope. This is what I'm offering, Mercer said. Badaba, a mission. Help me build something that actually helps people like us. People who don't fit in the civilian world, but don't have a war to fight anymore. Lex studied the photos, saw herself in every face. How many have you trained? 15 total, 32 in the current pipeline. But I can't do it alone anymore. I'm 67, my knees are shot, my back's worse. I can teach tactics, but I can't demonstrate them. Not the way you can. I'm not a teacher, sir. Neither was I. You learn, and Lex last night, that wasn't just muscle memory. That was judgment. You could have killed those men. Instead, you controlled them, stopped them without destroying them. That's what I need, what they need. Lex turned away from the photos. What if I take Brennan's offer? Then I'll be disappointed, but I'll understand it's a good offer. Steady pay, federal benefits, recognition, a chance to prove them wrong and get paid for it. But you'll be working for the same institution that betrayed you, following their rules, their protocols, their politics, proving yourself to people who should have believed in you from the start. He paused. Is that what you want? Lex didn't answer, couldn't answer, because she didn't know. The next 72 hours were chaos. The video hit 20 million views, then 30. News outlets ran the story on loop. Different angles, different spins, same footage. CNN, female Navy veteran defends herself against 3 attackers. Fox, excessive force, former SEALs restaurant, assault raises questions. MSNBC, viral video shows why women belong in special operations. Reporters found her apartment, called her phone, sent emails, DMs Facebook messages, all wanting the same thing, an interview, her story, her truth. She ignored them all, but she couldn't ignore the other messages. The ones from veterans. Hundreds of them. Thank you for showing them what we're capable of. I was at that tribunal hearing. I knew you were right. You inspired my daughter to enlist. She wants to be like you. I've been out 3 years, still don't know who I am. How did you find purpose? That last one hurt the most, because she hadn't found purpose. She'd been drifting, failing, trying to be someone she wasn't, until 17 seconds forced her to remember who she was. On the second day, she got a visitor, Donna Whitmore, the waitress from Blackstone Grill. 52, tired eyes, strong hands. Wedding rings she still wore even though her husband had died in Iraq 7 years ago. She knocked on Lex's door at 10 a.m., nervous, hesitant. Ms. Morgan, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Donna. I worked at the restaurant that night. Worked. Past tense. They fired me yesterday. Lex opened the door wider. Why'd they fire you? For talking to reporters. I told them what really happened. That those men were harassing you. That you defended yourself. That you probably saved lives by stopping them before it got worse. Her jaw tightened. The owner didn't like it. Said I was making the restaurant look bad for business. I'm sorry, that's not fair. Don't be, I'd do it again. Donna's hands twisted together. But that's not why I'm here. I need to ask you something. It's about my son. She pulled out her phone, showed Lex a photo. Young man, mid-20s, thin, haunted eyes, army uniform. Blake, he's 24, did 2 tours in Iraq. Came home 3 years ago and he's not okay. PTSD, nightmares, can't hold a job, can't sleep, won't talk to the VA therapists. I've tried everything. Her voice cracked. I watched you that night. How calm you were. How controlled. Like you'd found a way to be strong without being violent. And I thought, maybe you could help him. Maybe you could teach him what you know. Lex looked at this mother. This woman who'd lost her husband to one war and was losing her son to another. She thought about her own mother, how she'd looked when the army chaplain came to the door to say her husband wasn't coming home from Fallujah. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm not a therapist. I know, but you're a survivor. And maybe that's what Blake needs. Not someone who read about it in a textbook, someone who lived it. Lex pulled out one of Mercer's cards, wrote a number on the back. Tell your son to call this number. Colonel Frank Mercer runs a training program for veterans. It's not therapy. It's practical. Skills, purpose, community. Tell him I sent you. Donna's eyes filled with tears. Will it help him? I don't know, but it might give him something the VA can't, a mission, something to work toward that isn't just try to be normal. Thank you. Donna clutched the card. Thank you so much. After she left, Lex stood in her doorway for a long time, thinking about Blake Whitmore, about all the Blake Whitmores out there, all the veterans trying to fit into a world that didn't understand them, all the people Mercer was trying to help, all the people she could help, if she chose to. On the third day, she made her decision. She called Vice Admiral Brennan at 0800. Ma'am, this is Alexis Morgan. I've made my decision regarding your offer. Go ahead, Morgan. I'm declining, with respect. Silence. Long enough that Lex checked if the call had dropped. May I ask why I saw him? Because for 5 years I've been trying to be who I was. The operator you trained, the SEAL you discharged, the person I was before everything went sideways. She took a breath. It's time I became who I'm supposed to be instead. Another pause. Then I'm disappointed, but I respect your decision. And Morgan, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. The Navy will be here if you change your mind. The door stays open. Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you know. She hung up, immediately called Mercer. Sir, it's Lex. I'm in. When do I start? She heard the smile in his voice. Tomorrow morning. Oh, 700. Bring your gear. Welcome to the real mission, kid. 6 months later, everything had changed. Mercer Defense Institute grew. 8 students became 16. 16 became 32. The building expanded. New equipment, additional instructors, a waiting list. And Lex found something she'd been missing for 5 years. Purpose. She taught advanced combat tactics, a threat assessment, de-escalation, the same skills she'd used in that restaurant, the same judgment she'd learned in Helmand. But more importantly, she taught them how to live after the war. Her first class was 8 students, 7 men, 1 woman. The woman's name was Vanessa Cole, 26 years old, former Army MP. Discharged after reporting her sergeant for sexual assault and being told she was creating a hostile work environment. She reminded Lex of herself, skilled but shattered, capable but lost. In week 3, they ran a scenario, simulated bar fight, 2 aggressors. Vanessa's job was to de-escalate or neutralize. She froze, just stopped, hands shaking, eyes distant, somewhere else. Lex called a break, pulled her aside. What happened? I saw his face, my sergeant. The one who, she couldn't finish. I know it wasn't him, but I saw him and I just froze, like I did that night. You froze when he assaulted you. Vanessa nodded, shame written across her face. I'm trained. I knew what to do, but I froze. What kind of soldier freezes? The kind who survives. Lex sat down beside her. You want to know what freezing is? Weakness. No, it's your brain protecting you the only way it knows how. Freeze, play dead, wait for the threat to pass. It's a survival mechanism. And it worked. You're here. You survived. But now I'm broken. No, now you're safe. And you get to choose a different response. Because freezing got you through that night. But you're not in that night anymore. You're here, and here you get to learn something new. Vanessa looked at her. Did you ever freeze? Every time I close my eyes and see Helmand. Every time I wake up reaching for a weapon that isn't there. Every time someone approaches me from behind and I have to consciously decide not to drop them. Lex met her eyes. Yeah, I freeze all the time, but freezing isn't the same as giving up. Sometimes it's just your body asking your brain, are we in danger, and learning to answer no, not anymore. How do you learn that? Practice, repetition, putting yourself in controlled situations until your brain relearns what safe feels like. They ran the scenario again the next day, and the next. And the next, on day 7, Vanessa didn't freeze. She assessed the situation, positioned herself, used verbal de-escalation. When that failed, she neutralized both aggressors with textbook precision. Afterward, she stood there breathing hard. Not from exertion, from realization. I didn't freeze. No, you didn't. Why not? Because you taught your brain something new. That you're not helpless anymore. That you have skills, options, power. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I thought I'd always be broken. You're not broken, you're rebuilt. And rebuilt things are always stronger because they know what breaking feels like. 6 months later, Vanessa graduated top of her class, scored 98% on her final evaluation. Highest in MDI history. An executive protection firm hired her. $92,000 a year, protecting a tech CEO who specifically wanted a female operator on his security team. On her last day, Vanessa found Lex in the gym. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You showed up, did the work. That's all anyone can do. You showed me it was possible. That's everything. They stood there. 2 survivors, 2 operators, 2 women who'd been told they were too damaged to be useful and proved everyone wrong. What are you going to do now? Lex asked. Vanessa smiled. Protect someone who needs it, just like you taught me. Blake Whitmore took longer. He arrived in week 2. Courtesy of a scholarship Lex funded herself. Took it straight from her savings. Worth every penny. 24 years old, Army veteran, Iraq, ED survivor, PTSD so bad he couldn't sleep more than 2 hours without nightmares. The first week he didn't speak, just went through the motions. Dead eyes, going through the motions of being alive without actually living. Week 2 he had a breakdown. Flashback during weapons training. The sound of gunfire triggered him. He collapsed, screaming. Hands over his ears. Lex got everyone else out of the range. Sat with Blake until he came back. Sorry, he gasped. Sorry, I'm broken. I'm useless. I shouldn't be here. Why not? Because I can't even handle a gunshot without losing my mind. What good am I? You're here. That's what good you are. You showed up. That's more than most people do. Showing up isn't enough. It is, when showing up is the hardest thing you can do. She helped him to his feet. Blake, the war's not going to leave you. It's just going to be there every day for the rest of your life. But it doesn't get to run your life anymore. You do. How? By showing up, by doing the work, by learning that you're more than your worst moments. 12 weeks later, Blake graduated. Not top of the class, not the strongest or the fastest. But he graduated, and that mattered. A security firm hired him, one that specialized in employing veterans. $68,000 a year. Understanding bosses. Flexible schedule for therapy appointments. The day he started his new job, he called his mother. Donna Whitmore cried for 20 minutes straight. Then she called Lex. My son's coming home, not just his body, him, the real him. Thank you. I didn't do anything, Mrs. Whitmore. You gave him hope. You gave me my son back. That's everything. Detective Duke Kavanaugh became an unexpected ally. He started referring Billings PD recruits to the Institute. Young cops who needed advanced de-escalation training. Officers who'd been in shootings and couldn't figure out how to go back to normal. The department eventually contracted with MDI. Steady revenue, credibility, official recognition. You're teaching what badges can't, Duke told Mercer one afternoon. How to be strong without being violent. How to protect without destroying. How to know when to fight and when to walk away. By March, 1 year after the restaurant incident, MDI had trained 140 veterans. 96% placement rate in security protective services and law enforcement. The statistics were impressive, but the real measure was in the faces. The graduates who came back to volunteer. The families who sent thank you cards. The mothers who got their children back. The graduation ceremony happened on a cold Montana morning. 32 new graduates, largest class yet. Families came. Employers, military brass, press. Mercer tried to keep it low-key. Lex tried to stay in the background, but the story was too good, too compelling, too necessary. Former Navy SEAL builds Training Institute, helps veterans transition. Real results, changed lives. The press loved it. Vice Admiral Catherine Brennan flew in from Coronado, not to recruit, not to judge, just to see what Lex had built instead of accepting her offer. She found Lex setting up chairs in the back. Ms. Morgan, Lex turned, saw the stars, came to attention without thinking. At ease, Brennan smiled. I'm not here officially, just wanted to see what you chose over my offer. Ma'am, I hope there's no hard feelings. None, you made the right choice, I can see that now. She looked around, at the facility, at the graduates, at everything Lex and Mercer had built. What you're doing here matters more than what you would have done at Coronado. The Navy trains warriors. You're rebuilding them. There's a difference. Thank you, ma'am. Brennan extended her hand. Lex shook it. The offer still stands if you change your mind, but I don't think you will. No, ma'am, I won't. The ceremony started at 1400 hours. Mercer spoke first, wearing his dress blues for the first time in years, every medal from 40 years of service on display. I'm 68 years old, he began. I've trained thousands of warriors across 4 decades. Different wars, different enemies, different generations. He paused, found Lex in the crowd. But Alexis Morgan taught me something I'd forgotten after all those years. The audience leaned in. We don't train people to fight. We train them when not to fight. How to recognize the difference between a threat and a trigger. How to use their capabilities without being controlled by them. He gestured to the graduates. These 32 people came here broken. At least that's what they thought. What the world told them. What their discharge papers implied. His voice got stronger. But they weren't broken. They were just in the wrong place. The military trained them to be weapons. Society expected them to just stop, turn it off, be normal. We don't teach normal here. We teach useful. We teach purposeful. We teach them to take everything the military gave them and use it to build instead of destroy. He looked back at Lex. 1 year ago, Instructor Morgan neutralized 3 attackers in 17 seconds. The video went viral, 12 million views, 30 million now. People watch it and think they understand her. They don't. You want to know what that video doesn't show? The 30 seconds before those 17 where she tried to de-escalate. The training that taught her to fight only when every other option failed. The judgment that let her stop 3 men without killing any of them. His voice dropped. Serious. That's not violence, that's mastery. That's discipline. That's the operator's code. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation. Mercer waved them down. But I'm not the one who deserves your thanks. He pointed to Lex. Get up here, kid. Lex wanted to refuse, wanted to stay hidden, but 32 graduates were looking at her. Waiting. She walked to the front. The applause got louder. Mercer stepped aside, handed her the microphone. Lex looked out at the faces. Families, employers, fellow veterans, all waiting. She took a breath. 5 years ago, I left the Navy, not because I wanted to, because they asked me to, told me I made them uncomfortable, that my capabilities raised questions they weren't ready to answer. A few uncomfortable laughs. For 5 years, I tried to be normal, tried 7 different arms, failed at all of them, because I was trying to be someone I wasn't. She gestured to the graduates. You came here because you felt the same way. Like you don't fit. Like the world doesn't want what you have to offer. Like maybe you're just broken. I'm here to tell you you're not broken. You're just standing in the wrong place. Her voice strengthened. 1 year ago, 3 men forced me to remember who I was. They put me in a situation where I had to choose. Be a victim or be an operator. I chose to be who I was trained to be. But here's what nobody talks about. Before those 17 seconds of violence, I spent 30 seconds trying not to fight, trying to de-escalate, trying to find any solution that didn't involve hurting someone. She let that sink in. Because violence isn't strength. Violence is what happens when strength fails. Real strength is having the power to destroy someone and choosing not to, having the skills to kill and using them to protect instead. She looked at Mercer. Colonel Mercer told me that warriors aren't meant to be alone. For 5 years, I didn't believe him. I thought being strong meant being independent, self-sufficient, needing nobody. I was wrong. She turned to the graduates. You came here thinking you were broken. We didn't fix you. You fixed yourselves. We just gave you the tools, the space, the mission. Vanessa Cole was crying in the front row. So was Blake Whitmore. So were most of the graduates. I made an impossible shot in Helmand Province. Wounded an innocent man to save his life. The Navy court-martialed me for it. Said it was reckless endangerment. Maybe it was, but it was also right. And I'd do it again, because that's what operators do. We make the hard calls, the impossible choices, the decisions that save lives even when the bureaucrats don't understand the math. Her voice caught. She pushed through. In that restaurant, I made another impossible choice. Let three drunk men hurt someone or remember who I was trained to be. I chose to remember. But the real choice came after. When Admiral Brennan called, when the Pentagon offered me everything I'd wanted 5 years ago, recognition, vindication, a chance to prove them wrong. I said no, she pointed to the graduates, because these 32 people don't care about my vindication. They care that I showed up, that I taught them, that I gave them a mission when they'd lost theirs. Tears now, she didn't hide them. That's the operator's code, not the violence, not the skills, the service, the willingness to use what you have for something bigger than yourself. So to my graduates, you're not broken. You're operators without a war. And yes, that's the hardest thing in the world to be. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. She stepped back. Mercer caught her, steadied her. The applause was deafening. That night, alone in her new office, Mercer had insisted she have one. Lex sat in the dark, thinking about the path that led here. Helmand, the tribunal. 5 years of failure, one night in a restaurant. 17 seconds that changed everything. A soft knock. Come in. Mercer entered, 2 glasses, bottle of whiskey. Thought you might need this. He poured. They drank in comfortable silence. You did good today, kid. We did good, sir. No, this was you. I just gave you the space. More silence, the good kind. You know what I realized, Lex said. What's that? I spent 5 years trying to forget Helmand, trying to forget that shot, trying to forget who I was when I pulled that trigger. And now I realize that shot wasn't my failure. It was my answer. I wounded someone to save him, used violence to prevent more violence, made an impossible choice because someone had to. She looked at him. That's what we do here. Take people who think they're broken and show them how to use their pain to help others. Turn trauma into purpose, violence into protection. Mercer nodded. Your old man would be proud. Lex smiled. He is, sir, right here. She meant him. They both knew it. 6 months later, Brock Harrigan sent a letter. No return address, cheap paper, prison commissary stationery. Lex almost threw it away, then made herself read it. Miss Morgan, I'm the man whose nose you broke at Blackstone Grill. I'm writing from county jail. 6 months for assault and illegal weapons possession. I've had a lot of time to think about who I was that night, who I've been since the Army kicked me out. I blamed everyone. The military, women, the world, everyone except myself. You didn't just break my nose. You broke the lie I'd been telling myself, that I was a victim, that my anger was justified. I'm getting help now, AA, anger management, real therapy for the first time. My daughter Emma is 8. She saw the video, asked why that lady hurt me. I had to tell her the truth, that you didn't hurt me. You stopped me from hurting someone else. I want to be the father she deserves, the man who doesn't need to hurt others to feel strong. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Brock Harrigan. Lex folded the letter, put it in her desk drawer, didn't respond, but she kept it. 1 year later, Duke Kavanaugh mentioned that Brock had gotten a warehouse job, was sober, had partial custody of Emma on weekends, small steps, but forward. She never met him again. Didn't need to. The letter was enough. 2 years after the restaurant, Mercer Defense Institute had trained 420 veterans, 96% placement rate. The numbers were impressive, but the measure was in the lives, the second chances, the mothers who got their children back. March 2027. Colonel Frank Mercer passed away peacefully in his sleep, 70 years old, surrounded by photos of people he'd trained, people he'd saved. Lex spoke at his funeral. 500 attendees, veterans from 4 decades, different wars, different generations, all connected by one man's belief that warriors deserve better. He taught me that strength isn't about violence, she said. It's about service, about using your capabilities to build instead of destroy. She looked at his flag-draped coffin. Colonel Mercer told me once that the warrior's greatest battle isn't on the battlefield. It's finding peace after the war. And the greatest victory is helping others find theirs. Her voice steadied. He won that battle, and he helped hundreds of us win ours. That's his legacy, not the wars, the lives he rebuilt. She saluted, one last time. The Institute continued. Alexis Morgan, sole director, carrying forward a mission that mattered more than any war. In Billings booth S3 at Blackstone Grill remained reserved. Small plaque above it, for those who stand up. The owner had framed Lex's $100 bill, hung the security footage on the wall, not as a warning, as a reminder. That strength isn't size. That violence isn't power. That sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who chooses not to be dangerous at all. 5 years after Hellman, 3 years after the restaurant, Lex stood in front of her newest class, 50 students, more women than ever, all looking at her like she had answers. She didn't, but she had experience. Sometimes that's enough. My name is Alexis Morgan, former Navy SEAL. I made an impossible shot that saved a man's life and almost ended my career. I failed at 7 civilian jobs, and 3 years ago, I defended myself in a restaurant. A few knowing smiles. That video has 42 million views now. People think those 17 seconds define me. She shook her head. They don't. What defines me is what happened after. The choice I made, the mission I found, the people I helped. She looked at each face. You're here because you're lost, because the uniform came off and you don't know who you are without it, because civilian life doesn't make sense. I get it. I was you. She picked up a marker, wrote on the whiteboard, who you were, arrow, who you are, arrow, who you'll become. The military trained you to be a weapon. Society expects you to just stop, be normal. We don't teach normal here. We teach useful. She underlined the last word. For the next 12 weeks, I'm going to push you, challenge you, make you face the parts of yourself you've been running from. Not because I'm cruel, because on the other side of that pain is what you've been searching for. Purpose, Riyam. A hand went up, young woman, late 20s, haunted eyes. Do the nightmares ever stop? No, but they get quieter and you get stronger, until they're just background noise instead of the only thing you hear. Another hand, older, Iraqi freedom written all over him. Do you regret it? The video? Lex thought about it, really thought. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that 3 men forced me to hurt them. I regret being viral. But do I regret defending myself, protecting Detective Kavanaugh, building this? She shook her head. No, because those 17 seconds led to this. To 420 people finding purpose. To this institute. To you. She smiled. So no regrets, because it brought me exactly where I'm supposed to be. The room erupted. Applause. Hope. Lex raised a hand. Silence. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 12 weeks when you graduate, when you found your mission. She picked up her coffee. Until then, let's get to work. And they did, because that's what operators do. They complete the mission. Even when the mission is finding themselves. Even when the mission is helping others do the same. Even when the mission is building peace in a world that trained them for war. That night, Lex sat in Mercer's old office, now hers, pulled out Brock's letter, read it again. He was 3 years sober now, full custody of Emma on weekends, working toward joint, small victories. She put the letter back. Next to Mercer's final evaluation from Afghanistan, 2 pieces of paper, 2 reminders, one of who she'd been, one of who she'd helped someone become. She turned off the light, locked the door, drove home through Montana darkness. Tomorrow, 50 new students, 50 new chances. And somewhere booth S3 sat waiting for the next person who needed to remember. That strength isn't violence. It's choosing peace when you have the power to choose war. It's service when self-interest would be easier. It's building when destruction takes less effort. That's the operator's code. Not 17 seconds of fighting, a lifetime of service after. Always the service, forever the mission.